Well, I've learned that you can endure more than you think you can.
Weather has always been dangerous, but today's weather can be more intense and more erratic.
This tree was across my bed. So if I would have stayed there, I would be dead.
The tornado season is historically active. Snow and drought are hitting some places for the first time in a generation.
Are you seeing the damage being worse?
Significantly worse.
This week on The Race, I'm meeting the Americans on the front lines of crisis, worried they could lose it all at the turn of the weather.
What would be the biggest thing you would want someone to take away about Pajaro from having seen this story?
This is an example of a small town that's feeding the country, and it's an example of a community that's on the front lines of climate change. You know, this will be happening in other places.
Where we're standing right now, it might honestly look like a desert, but this is a strawberry field, which is a major cash crop for this part of California. Heavy flooding came through earlier this year, and it just brought this thick layer of mud. This is the time of year where farmers typically are picking their crop to be able to go and sell them, but this is a total loss.
Clear skies don't signal the end to a weather disaster. It's easy to see that here in Pajaro, California. In March, a nearby river breached a levee after days of heavy rainfall and put much of this small farming town underwater.
And so this was a bedroom, and there was beds, and those were ruined. So this is, you know, just all ruined.
The floodwaters may have receded, but it's hard not to see the emotional toll they've taken on people like Avelia Martinez.
I'm a doer, and I can physically do it, but financially, I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the money to go buy all this sheetrock and insulation and reinforce all these beams. I don't have that money.
The space she rented out behind her home to make money as she goes to school full time is now gutted. Her most recent tenants were farm workers. Pajaro is an affordable haven for those who do the backbreaking, often minimum wage work of picking crops. Many are undocumented. FEMA is now here, but those without a social security number or a child born in the U.S. don't qualify.
And it's throughout this whole town that a lot of people are scared if they're undocumented, even just to speak up. And that's why the word doesn't get out. And, you know, everything just goes, everybody thinks it goes back to normal, but it doesn't.
The flooding here, this event has highlighted all the lack of a social safety net for this area.
Eloy Ortiz has been trying to help farm workers, many of whom lost everything they own.
Organizations have been great about giving out food and clothes and toys and things like that, but none of that will pay the rent here.
He worries this disaster, along with the climate uncertainty of a region which dealt with record dry conditions until this year, will force workers to go somewhere else to make money.
If they leave California, if they leave this area, it's going to have a huge ripple effect on the rest of the country.
He says since the flooding, work has been hard to find.
So right now we don't have the berries available, see?
Like many farmers here, strawberries are Paulie Urena's main crop. He says this is typically the best time of year to sell them, but the recent wet weather has put him a month behind.
You wouldn't expect this kind of weather. See, for us, we had some years that we didn't have any rain at all, you know.
California produces roughly 90% of our nation's strawberries. The California Strawberry Commission, which represents growers across the state, told me the climate issues here shouldn't impact the prices we pay. But for Urena, losing this month is a major blow. He says soon more kinds of fruit like blackberries and raspberries will be in season, and that's when he says his strawberry sales typically cool off.
How much are you expecting this to impact your business for this year?
I would say probably we're going to lose at least half of our income.
Half of your income.
Yeah.
Wow.
What we expect above all with climate change is extremes, right? Climate change is a threat multiplier, and it's making storms bigger, it's making, the dries drier and the wets wetter.
I sat down with Nancy Fallstick, who leads a local nonprofit trying to bring awareness to the impacts of climate change in communities like this one where resources are limited.
That attention may go elsewhere in the country, but people are going to be living with this.
Soon, flood recovery will turn to preparation for wildfire season.
With the climate concerns, do you ever consider leaving?
No, I haven't considered leaving. That has not been a thought of mine, just because I have faith that something will work out. I'm always hopeful. I don't give up easy. So, but it's getting very hard not to give up. But I love this area, I love this community.
A community those here tell us more people should take notice of, as they live on what they say is the front lines of climate change in America. I took some of the questions I heard in Pajaro to Scripps News meteorologist Scott Withers. He's traveled the country throughout his career covering severe weather.
You think of California, you think of drought, you think of we've just talked about drought so much over the past couple of years, and then they have this record flooding. It feels like such a whiplash of different kinds of weather.
That's because it is. This is an atmospheric whiplash. Just because we got 1 year of heavy rain, heavy snow, that doesn't mean that the drought is over. Even with all of these record amounts of rain and snow, California, some places are still in drought.
The U.S. Drought Monitor shows more than 30% of California is abnormally dry or worse, compared to 100% of the state at the start of this year.
Now, the next thing you're going to say, well, we've got record amounts of snowpack. That's going to melt. That's going to help the farmers. Well, maybe. We don't know for sure. Because 2 years ago when it melted so quickly it didn't sink in and it ran off into the rivers, and then that was gone. It was wasted water. We could see the same thing this year, flash flooding, and the water's wasted. So, yes, in the short term, the drought problems that they've been dealing with, those are over. But the long-term problems are still there. And the mega drought is just kind of shifted. Now you're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and Florida. Florida's actually going through a drought right now. So it's kind of moved. The mega drought is still in place. As a country, we're going to have to deal with this shifting areas of dry weather and how we're going to grow food, grow crops, because it keeps hitting the areas that are predominantly where we get our vegetables and fruits from.
The race continues. Next.